was really more along the lines of, well, if this were even to be approved, right, reviewed by us.
We would have to have some code.
recommended somewhere down the road or not, and then ultimately present to the city council, we
Okay.
would need a condition, no, we'd need to amend the conditional use ordinance. And so if we were to do that, what were some of the concerns that we think we would want to address, just as a threshold question, right? Before we get to the question of, well, is this a good idea for the city, right? It's more, right, like, we'll make that, we'll discuss, I think, that determination tonight. Is this something that we actually recommend, to approve or deny? But if we were, the discussion that we had before was just to try to think about the things that if this were to pass, these are some of the issues we should think about.
Okay.
And that was, and hence the proposed ordinance change that Ryan just went through.
Okay, but that street, for like this particular case, Grove past Alpine Boulevard does
It's
not
a minor.
fit.
Nope, it would be okay, I think I've got it.
Existing minor local,
Yeah,
so it's way,
Yeah,
it's just not
okay.
gonna work. I mean,
And when
it's-
we looked at what other communities did, there we go. Yeah, so Grove is this green, which is this existing, minor local. When we looked at what other communities had, they had them on these arterial roads or the major
Yeah,
collector, just
sure.
'cause those are designed for more traffic. These ones like this aren't necessarily designed to that, so, and again, Alan made a really good point. What we're looking at is the use tonight. Do we want this use in this designated zone? Not necessarily a particular application. That will come later. But right now, we're just looking at, do we want this use in this zone? So, yes, it's good to consider, the individual application, but kind of a broader.
And can you
broader look at that.
can you scroll up again to remind me what other ones we have for this zone that we already have conditional use?
Yep. So these are, whoops, these are ones that we have in there, and ignore the numbering on there, it got kind of screwy when I was putting
Yeah,
this
that's
in. But
fine.
these are ones that we list in, as conditional uses in a lot of the other zones.
Okay,
But these ones, because of their nature, require a little more, standards or a little more just understanding of what we can do with those.
in the CR 40,000.
Yeah, so most of
Okay.
these are in the CR 40,000. What's unique, sorry to make everyone car sick as I scroll back and forth, but, so this is the table we have. It looks a lot better actually online. When you put it on here, it kind of gets squished, but, so these are all, let's see, what's one that was? So if we did add reception centers, we would just add it to this table and say, the planning commission, I put you guys, if you can read that, the planning commission is the land use authority. So they would come to you, wouldn't have to go to city council for conditional use on this.
Okay,
And then we're only allowing it in the CR 40.
yeah,
You can see on some of these, most of them, if we allow it in like the CR 20 well, here's a good one, shooting gallery.
yeah,
City council's the approving body. We allow it in the CR 20, CR 40, CE 5, and CE 50.
okay,
Another
So-
example, Jeff, is when we went through this whole process with the fruit stand.
yeah.
Yeah, right.
And,
Right.
that was probably our most recent
Yeah,
brush
the
with this
shooting
ordinance.
galleries and the fruit stand
Yeah.
were ones that we added.
Yep.
But we,
Ryan, oh, okay.
go ahead.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Another question for you, Ryan.
Yep.
When we talked last time, we talked about like Knott and Pine and the ones that were right downtown.
Mhm.
Is that also the same?
That's in the,
Isn't that more of the commercial? like-
Commercial
yep, that's in the
zone.
business commercial zone.
Are we gonna need to change the zoning then, right?
No.
Put a reception-
No.
No,
'cause
we
it'd
would
be a
just-
conditional use.
We would just change the
Use, okay.
use, an allowed use, yep.
Just be
And then,
allowed
do you
use.
remember from the notes, he mentioned how many events he would need to have to kind of make this be?
Yeah, and
More
I
than
think the only point
36.
would be that we're not, we don't have a specific particular application before us.
I
I
just
mean,
wondered if that's-
what spawned this whole discussion was, a potential, an interest and, an interest from a resident, a citizen, that, hey, I have a property, I would like to use it this way. What would I need to do in order to do that? And the answer was, well, you are in the CR 40,000, so we would have to amend our ordinance and allow your particular desired use as a conditional use.
Yeah.
And that sparked the discussion we
And-
had in December.
And all that stuff that Ryan put in there, there's nothing sacred about it. 4 events per
Yeah.
month, that's just some
This is all
random
just-
number.
Yeah.
Yep.
It could be
Everything's just-
1 a year, 2 a year, you
In
know,
which
2
case
a
would
week.
probably not be commercially reasonable, right?
Yeah,
I mean, that
yeah,
was-
it's just a
Part of the effort
random,
was to, provide a balancing
Yeah.
test, but
Kinda, yeah.
Do we know
talking
how
about that.
many 5-acre lots that are out there?
Not a ton, not a ton. There's, I
They're
mean, there's a
mostly-
handful.
less
the
than the fingers
north
on
and
one
east.
hand, less than the fingers on 2 hands. I
Yes,
mean,
yeah,
that meet
Somewhere
all
5 to
these
10.
requirements. And it was-
Yeah.
Yeah.
so.
The fruit stand makes it. I think that's a 5-6 acre property, right?
See, and that's,
The farm.
see, and those are in the CR 20,000, well, no, those ones might be
Does
40,000.
he have his own? I don't
Nope.
know.
yeah,
My
That one-
neighbor,
That one didn't even require a 5-acre.
Nope,
yeah,
I just wondered if that grandfathered in
yeah,
because how long that farm's been.
yeah.
I don't know. I was just, how many
And-
parcels are we
And
talking
yeah,
about?
yeah, that would be a good question.
There's one off of Westfield that had expressed interest at one point of doing something like this.
right, yep,
Those are the only two, I suppose, even
One of
further,
those bigger
even
ones,
even
huh?
Yeah,
further
there we
down
go.
on Westfield.
Yeah, so, to your point, the number of properties that might actually meet all of the current bullet points as proposed are, I don't know that we know a number, but
A
it's
whole ton.
not very
Not
many.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not very many.
So this would apply, and again, if you go back to the general plan, it says this is kind of a more rural, larger lots, kind of designated zone, kind of on the outside of town.
Yes.
So this kind of, different shade of yellow, not so bright yellow, tannish looking. That's the CR 40,000 zone. So by approving this, we would say any lot that meets those requirements in this zone would be eligible for,
In the town.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so shall we go ahead and open this up for public hearing and then?
Sure.
And then discuss, okay.
Sure.
So, thank you, Ryan, appreciate that. I'd like to open this particular item, action item A, for a public hearing. Is there anybody here who would like to come up to the podium and make a comment? Okay, Ryan, I don't know that we're doing online comments, are we?
No.
Okay.
No, and I, just a heads up too on the public hearing, we did send letters out last week to everyone, I believe within 300 feet of this property. That wasn't us or the applicant, so there wasn't, I think there was 8 or 9. I only had one respond back, he called me today, he was supposed to email me, but I haven't seen anything. He was kind of concerned about it,
So only one
but-
response.
but I only got one, yeah, but we
Okay.
sent it out, I think it was last Tuesday, Wednesday.
Okay.
But just so they had enough
Okay.
time.
All right, thank you, Ryan. Then let's go ahead and close the public hearing then, and then open this up for discussion. And let me just make a statement and see if we can't kind of focus the discussion. Where I think we really are, maybe before we get into and discuss again, do we have the right bullet points? Did we think of everything? Is there anything else we want to adjust there? I think Ryan did a, really good job of listening to some of our comments and concerns, last month or a couple months ago, whenever it was. Looking and seeing what other cities, municipalities are doing, and putting together a pretty good conditional use if we were to recommend approval. And I think that we all understand, what I think the biggest issue here really is, should we make a recommendation for approval to the city council? Because my concern has always been with this, that this is not really in our commercial district. It's a business, but it's not in our commercial district. It's CR 40 is residences, large lots, large homes, and we would be allowing a particular homeowner to have this conditional business use in our CR 40,000. Now, tempered, by that is, I've been to, is this use, a good one for us? Yeah, probably, because there's lots of weddings, there's lots of events. Instead of driving to Pleasant Grove or American Fork or other places. You know, there might be people having wedding receptions or weddings or things a lot closer to us. It is, you know, we do require this to be, you know, at least 5 acres, and there's lots of distance from buildings, et cetera. But I do have a serious concern that, you know, we're kind of allowing a business with potentially a lot of cars and a lot of traffic into otherwise fairly quiet residential areas. And I think that's a concern that we really should, you know, consider, you know, ultimately, and get out there and decide as a commission whether we want to make what kind of recommendation we want to make to the city council.
I'd like to hear from John and Troy and Sue as well.
We already have businesses in residential neighborhoods, we have preschools, we have dance groups. I don't see this as any different. I mean, some of our neighborhoods have dance 4 times a day, 3 days, 4 days a week. Oh, you know, so we already allow businesses in our residential neighborhoods on small scales. We regulate it, we control it, and I guess I see this as just another use. Control it, regulate it, but it's still a need, as if you would say a dance, you know, group using a basement or a preschool. We already have those and allow those, so I don't see it as being much different if we control it.
I kind of feel like it's a little different animal, you know. I feel like there's bigger crowds, more noise, a lot more activity. I think the parking, like we've mentioned before, I think we don't know what to expect, right? There might be a lot of cars parked on the street, or not. I just feel like it doesn't really belong in, you know, mixed in with houses and stuff. I mean, and from a real estate agent's point of view, my opinion is, I feel like it actually kind of deducts from the value of a neighboring property. That's kind of how, I mean, I wouldn't, you know, if I had a really nice house, I wouldn't get excited about having an event center next door if I was gonna purchase that home. You know, some of my thoughts.
Thanks, Troy.
John, Sue?
Yeah, I've got lots of issues here with our proposed language. The McEwen, is that right?
Yeah.
When they came in here, they were going for, you know, 5 to 6 events per week to make it profitable. And we kind of, they didn't say anything contrary to our discussion of around 4 per month, but I saw their expressions just kind of go down. I've had a little bit of experience with event space in terms of running it as a business. I was a lender to one, and they would not ever be able to make their businesses function on 4 events per month. It's just not feasible. And so I have problems with building language into an ordinance that is already self-defeating for an ongoing business. And so if we feel like we want to have events, event space, I think we have to be willing to open it up so that it's a viable business. I'm looking at the roads, and Heritage Hills Road it abuts to these proposed properties. I know we're not trying to orient it towards this particular applicant, but I think if they change their entrance, they could become on a main arterial road, right? Blue is what we're going for, right?
Yep, blue and red.
And I
Blue and
believe
red would
their
be
property
okay.
is at the junction of the blue and the green here. Am I right there?
Yeah. Again, sorry to make everyone car sick, but I've got it right here.
So I'm disappointed the McEwens weren't here, because those are the questions I would like to ask them.
That-
And I don't feel like we should even have ordinance changes if we're just building something that just doesn't work.
Yeah, so it doesn't, I mean, the square is not on
It
the
doesn't,
corner.
it doesn't come into the corner, they don't touch. Okay, and I agree that it should be on Ontario, but it is very close. But, you know, it either meets or it doesn't. And I don't want to create situations where we're always,
Making exceptions.
yeah.
Yeah.
People that come to events don't always follow the rules. You know that when you've been
Yeah.
to events at reception centers. They park everywhere. Even Not in Pine had to put a new little placard saying park in the Montessori school
Yeah.
to control theirs, since
Yeah.
they don't have a lot of parking, but people just kind of do what they want when they go to events.
We're well aware of that.
Except when
The
you go to
fruit stand.
Then you park on the
That's right.
They're gonna be in my driveway when they go to that fruit stand.
That's my problem.
Yeah, and when Jed and I, we looked at this too, and we said, should we not include that in there? We just thought those roads would be the ones that would best.
Yeah.
I mean, if you have 300 people come into one of these.
But there really aren't that many, you look at the map, and if you look at the CR 40, I don't think there are any that qualify.
Wouldn't be a whole lot.
I mean, zero. So again, why create an ordinance that no one
Do-
can comply with?
Do a quick GIS query there for us, Ryan, to show us what properties are on the main arterial roads. Can you write a little query?
See if I don't know if we have the capability to do it on the fly, but
Yeah. What about you, Sue? Are you,
Well, I know that number was just a number, but that's just what stuck in my mind, is when he talked about what it would take to be profitable. And so it was a big number, and I was like, oh, if I was living up there, I'd be like, oh my gosh, that's, even though that's a big number that he needed, 4 is every weekend. So if you're living there, it's every weekend, at least one of the days of, you know, if it's a Friday, Saturday, it could be during the week as well, but that's still,
But to John's point, if every weekend still doesn't really make you profitable.
why are we doing it?
That's
So
what
it
I'm
needs to be,
so that's, I'm
so it
saying, why,
needs to
what would
be,
be even
you know,
a
so we'd need to greatly increase that.
Yeah,
If
that's
it
what I'm
was,
saying,
if it,
that
like,
doesn't make.
because if you're gonna do an ordinance, it's gotta be an ordinance worth doing, right? Otherwise, it's meaningless.
I agree.
So let's just say, for example, look, we would need to remove that 4 times per month. Then don't we just exacerbate
problem.
the issue of a business in
Yeah.
A
a
residential area.
residential zone?
And if we
But
could-
then temper that by Michelle's comments that, you know, well, where I live, I know that we have a dance studio just off of, First West?
Yeah.
And to be honest, when parents are picking kids up, you know, it's kind of a nightmare,
Yeah.
you know, on that little street. I know this is, you know, but again, it happens, but traffic on residential streets
Yeah.
commercial traffic on residential streets is not great.
Yeah.
So, you know, John points out an immediate problem is we should look at this. And if, for example, we feel like as a commission, we want to recommend this onto the city council, then right away, to John's point, you know, and again, we don't have, not that we're making ordinance for a particular applicant, but it would be nice to almost have those applicants here as a quasi-consultant.
Yeah.
To just say like, you know, somebody's done their due diligence on a business, I went to where they were, you know, somebody who's done their due diligence to start a business, they would be able to answer a lot of questions, you know, for us as you're, you know, trying to shape a, you know, conditional, you know, use ordinance, but
Well, it's hard, if you stick a 4 in there, then that's just setting them up to, it's not gonna be as successful.
what, did you see other problems, John, besides,
Much more traffic.
you know, besides location and
The
usage?
the
number of
parking
usage?
seemed really light to me as well. I mean,
Yes.
Whenever you go to a wedding reception, that's kind of set up, Wadley Farms or any number of them.
Or even the Alpine Art Center. I
Yeah,
was
you've
there
got
on
people that are
Saturday.
standing, you know, face to face. So you've got probably 4 cars in a 10 by 10 foot area.
Yeah.
And that's the problem we have downtown here. It's the same problem you have anywhere, any reception center you go to.
Yep.
Is parking is always an issue. And so I think we'd have to tighten up on that. To what level, I don't know.
Can I make a comment,
Right.
Alan?
Yes.
I also think that we can't compare this to other residential businesses because a dance studio and a preschool are inside the building and in small numbers, and this is in such a big quantity and typically is outside, especially during the summer months, are typically an outside thing with music and things like that. But to me, the root of this is we're always so careful about protecting the rights of the people who make purchases and buy homes and buy property in the city. And when you purchase a home in an area like this is such a big change. You didn't purchase a home in commercial. So I think that's a big thing to impose on other landowners in the area. It's a huge change.
And to your point, Jane, if this conditional use were already in place, and then somebody came and bought an adjacent property, I mean, they may not realize what they have next door, but they probably would, or at least, fair warning is it's in the ordinance. But kind of to your point, this would be changing the ordinance, amending it to allow this as a conditional use and impacting, neighbors and others in the area that did not purchase their properties with this particular use in mind. It's just something to
Right.
consider.
Yeah, I think we should consider this as seriously as we consider a zone change, because I think this would affect the property owners next to them more than changing the lot size and the remaining to a smaller lot size.
Yeah, I agree,
And
Jane.
doesn't the general plan kind of say that we want to maintain that rural in that zoning and stuff? It kind of, I don't know, I feel like that this kind of goes opposite of what that is saying, if I'm reading that.
It's pretty low impact development. I mean, the barn, I think, is already there, so there's not gonna be any new structures.
Yeah.
So you'll have the same, it'll actually preserve
Yeah.
the country feel.
Yep.
And was the parking just on gravel or grass?
Yeah, and the reason most of these we put in there is trying to balance that, it's supposed to be a residential, rural, open space, fill the zone versus how do we make this work? So yeah, like I said, all the conditions all the standards that we found we took mostly from other, it's a combination of, from other communities that do something similar and kind of what we're already doing. So we can amend these if we'd like, we can change them whatever we want. These were just meant to be kind of a starting. If we were to allow something like this, these are some of the things we'd want to look at.
How strongly was the opposition from the person that called you today?
They were pretty against it.
I mean, I think,
John?
I think Wadley Farms is probably about as good of an example as we could think of, because that is right in the middle of all the residents. There's no commercial anywhere. It is right in the middle.
It's also been in place for like 30 years.
Yes.
There's a new one that's just a couple of blocks south of that just opened.
And there's one in American Fork, like Spur and Lace or something, that's in a full residential, and you park on their lawn. And, but it's in a full
It's in the
older-
fall. I don't know where that one is. Yeah.
I've only been there once.
What's the road use there? What, do you know if it's like an arterial or what?
I don't think so.
Yeah, all of these are very small roads.
Yeah, I know the one by.
John,
Watt.
to John's point, I think visually it maintains the country feel if you want to, visually, as far as open space and everything goes, but I don't think during the event it would be absolutely not.
Well, doesn't it kind of depend on what style they do too? I mean, they could, I don't know, I guess not.
Well, you'd arguably have a 3, 4, 5 hour period of time, possibly 2 to 3 times per week. And it's not just that. I mean, like, I just think about any reception, my kids' receptions that we've had to put on and others. I mean, you've got trucks coming in, you've got things being delivered, catering trucks, commercial vehicles. I mean, it's not, it's not a small country endeavor, to be honest. So I'm just trying to think, to move things along. It seems to me Ryan, what are your thoughts on this? I'm trying to think procedurally, like, maybe it makes sense to just sort of go around and say, hey, preliminarily, each of us, kind of a straw poll,
Oh,
are you
sure.
up or down on this? Because
Happy to
if
do
it's
that.
down,
Yeah.
then we just might see, okay, there's a majority that are probably gonna recommend to the city council that we deny this conditional use. And then I feel like if the city council then reviews this and says, well, hey, with all due respect, we feel otherwise, then they have the opportunity to send
Sure.
it back.
Yeah.
And the motion, the motion could be something along the lines of, hey, we recommend denial if that's a straw poll. But if the city council feels otherwise, I don't know if we need to put it in the motion or not, but some recommendation that it come back to us to kind of
Amend-
clean up and
amend-
refine
I agree.
the requirements under the conditional use.
I would,
Does
I
that
would
seem like
support,
a-
yeah,
like
I
a
would
reasonable
support
way to
that,
proceed?
Alan.
But we have no applicant for conditional use, so this is
Yeah.
just a proposed
Right, it's
ordinance
just-
change.
So then we would want it to come back to us to say, look, we've already given a lot of thought to this. So there are some things, if the city council did send it back to us, that we would probably immediately want
Yeah.
to refine.
Well,
So,
I would
uh,
support that.
Jeff, thoughts?
I'm against adding this language to our conditional use
Okay,
permit.
Suze?
I'm against it.
Yeah, I'm probably a no. John?
No?
Probably no.
Okay,
No.
all right.
Jane?
Oh, sorry, Jane?
Yeah, no, I don't think it's wise.
Okay, it's pretty much it's unanimous then. Does somebody want to make a motion? Give some thought to the right, real quick, Ryan,
Yeah.
is it just a clean motion that we, recommend,
Yeah.
denial of this?
Yep.
Do we need to add the language I just mentioned, that if the council feels otherwise to send
Yeah.
it back, or will they just know that?
Yeah, and we could go about this kind of two ways. You could just deny it and say, we deny it. As part of my staff report, when it goes to the city council, I include the motion and kind of the discussions that we had there with that. So that's one way you could do it, and just as part of my staff report, I could say, or that could be part of the motion, that we include language that if the city council wanted to entertain this more, potentially approve it, they send it back to the city council, or the planning commission, excuse me. The other way we could do it is you could move to deny it and say, but if this is going to be, if the city council wants to approve it, these are the.
And I don't even necessarily think we need to add that language.
Yeah,
Yeah, if they want to send it back, they'll send it back. We
Yeah.
don't need to tell them
Yeah.
that.
Okay,
yeah. So you could just do a straight denial then as well.
okay, so there's some good guidance. Would anybody like to make a
Yeah,
motion?
I'll make a motion, Alan. I move to recommend that ordinance 2024-03, amending the designated sections of the Alpine Development Code to allow reception centers as a conditional use in the CR 40,000 zone be denied based on the fact that it doesn't fit our master plan, our city's master plan, including our city's transportation plan.
I'll second that.
Okay, so we have a motion by Jeff Davis and a second by John McKay. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Discussion?
Aye. Oh, I'm sorry.
Aye.
You're right. Discussion on the motion? I felt like I had one, but yeah. Discussion on the
I
motion.
didn't think there would be, but I wanted to make sure.
Okay, no discussion on the motion, then all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Any, not opposed, what do you say?
Any nays?
Any nays? Yeah.
I think it's unanimous.
Okay, it was unanimous. All right, so, then let's go ahead and go to action item B, review of a commercial building sign application for Alpine Fitness. Ryan, would you like to introduce that?
Yep. So this is one we looked at last time, Alpine Fitness, and I call it the Alpine Fitness Building, because I think that's mainly what it is, but two sign applications, the Alpine Fitness and Alpine Physical Therapy. Last time this came in, didn't meet the size requirement, so, as a planning commission, you, recommended to table it, or you tabled it, with the condition that a final rendering be turned in, before we review it again. You can see the conditions there. These don't line up with the numbers in our code, so take that into consideration, but Word will number it how it wants to. So, staff, we've reviewed, There's two signs on this, maybe we can look at these, separately, but again, this is administrative, so we're applying current rules, current code that we have there. There's the motion, as you can see there. So the current sign renderings that they proposed, for the Alpine Fitness sign came in at 59.6 square feet. That would be located, and we'll go over there's renderings of this too, we can go over too. That would be located on the west side facing Main Street there. And then they are proposing on the south side a physical therapy sign. So as staff, as we reviewed this, those would be in compliance with our code because 60 square feet or 15% of the individual sides of the building. Only one sign per business. These are two separate businesses. So on the look of it, it would be in compliance with our code there. The last point, as we can see there on number 7, is you all as the Gateway Historic Review Committee as well have the ability to make any recommendations as far as making it comply with our Gateway Historic Design standards that were in your packet as well. As staff, and maybe we can go through the pictures and then I can kind of discuss the review on this. This is what was submitted. So point 1 here would be the Alpine Fitness sign. Again, 59.6 square feet, meets our code that way. It will have a halo effect lighting, so lighting from behind. When we reviewed this last summer, one of the things we looked at was that was okay, the halo effect. We just didn't want the light shining through the sign, if that makes sense. But a backlit is okay. Number 2 there is where the Alpine Physical Therapy sign would go. We can see the dimensions in the sign there. Again, Alpine Fitness. This one seems to be in compliance with the standards that we have there. And then this Alpine Physical Therapy just physical therapy sign along the south side there. In going over this with the applicant, square footage was not given to us for the physical therapy sign. One thing we could do with this is, as part of your motion, include language that's saying that you all have reviewed this, but it won't be approved until staff can review the size portion of it to meet that 60 square feet. So we wouldn't necessarily have them come back to Planning Commission, and for that side of it, we would just have, you guys would direct staff that they would have to submit a rendering of 60 square feet or less on that one before we can approve these. With these, once you guys approve them, there's an application that it comes with. I sign it and Shane signs it as part of that approval. So we just wouldn't sign that until a rendering came in with the 60 square feet or less. Any questions on any of this?
Do we have anything that shows the construction of these signs
What do you mean?
besides being halo? Is it the material? Is it stainless steel? Is it?
I think when I'm looking at the YESCO application, John,
Yeah, scroll back down
right
to
there, it
that.
says scope of work.
Yeah.
YESCO to manufacture and install one set of halo illuminated reverse channel letters. Letter faces and 3-inch returns to be brushed aluminum, horizontal grain. So,
Okay.
brushed aluminum, I guess.
So that's the returns. What about the face? Letter faces and returns. Okay. Yeah, so it's brushed aluminum. Would the
Illumination to be white LEDs.
would the physical therapy be of the same material?
I would imagine so. This is kind of what we've got as far as
I
this.
mean, it looks
And
black.
it's-
Looks black to me.
Yeah, and as part of your motion on this, you could say as proposed. So if they came back in 3 months or it went up in 3 months and it was hot pink, that would be in violation of what was approved because we approved a black.
Well, what's the material of the Alpine Fitness is a brushed aluminum horizontal grain. What is the physical therapy
I would imagine it would be
material?
similar, Paul, is that? Yeah, yeah. If that's, Alan, that's your call as the chair.
Maybe a motion could call out, if you do want to include it, that it has to be of the same material, or they need to come back.
Well, let's find out what they've got
Okay.
proposed.
So if you want to state your name and your address.
Paul, Paul Anderson, 255 South Main Street, Alpine, Utah, 84004. So we ripped the rough end out of the bottom, so the Alpine Fitness is the only one that's gonna be on the top one there. If you flip back to the other one, Ryan. So I met with Ryan and Yesco on the phone to make sure we were good on the tower. And you can see it's kind of a light stucco. And so the problem we were having is Yesco, they've done so many renderings of this that they've kind of thrown in the towel. And so I got a rendering from a friend and threw it up there, and I said, hey, Ryan, how can we, if we meet code, and you and Shane and everybody, we do it all according to the book, this is the best I can do. They're not gonna approve anything in time for me to close a loan with the bank. So I took it I sent you guys all a letter, sent you guys all pictures.
Just,
sent you,
Paul, not to cut you off, but just tell us what the material is gonna be made out of.
metal.
Physical therapy. It's gonna be metal, but it's not gonna be backlit.
No, we don't have the
It's
ability to
just,
do it
so
anymore.
that's the question I was wanting to have answered.
Black.
So it's just gonna be black metal.
We wanted to
adhered.
do stainless steel or polished, but at this point, that's now white stucco, and there's
Okay,
no.
that's fine.
We can't punch through the.
That's all I wanted to know.
So it'll just gonna be a black metal or a painted black metal physical therapy against the,
Yeah, we're
white
gonna
stucco
remove
background.
the big, mountain logo, we're just gonna do away with. And it's so microscopic, it looks like this, is just gone. We're just putting physical therapy, so it's not gonna say Alpine, it's not gonna have a mountain. It's about a third of the 60 square feet. We just thought, the only other option would be to throw it into the parking lot, and everybody said that's kind of stupid, nobody will see it. So right now, it's not illuminated, it's not lit, it's not polished, it's just black on white.
Okay, perfect, that's all we need.
And then the other's on black. The Alpine Fitness is on black, kind of like your shirt.
Brushed aluminum on black,
On black.
backlit, halo lit,
Yeah.
3 inches deep.
yeah, 3 inch return.
so as far as the backlighting, does everybody see the simulated night view? What I guess those are the, yeah, right up. Yeah, right there. Okay, so to keep this, not a public hearing. Okay, so to keep this moving then, there's objective requirements and then there's a subjective piece, right? The objective requirements, Ryan, I think you're telling us, based on the submission from Yesco for the west-facing sign, Alpine Fitness, the size and the lighting, the backlighting, the halo lighting meets ordinance.
Right.
Meets code.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And the subjective part of this is that this is Gateway Historic District, right? So the subjective part of, for us to discuss then is, does this sign as proposed, the way it's backlit and the material being brushed aluminum, horizontal grain. Planning Commission is also the Gateway Historic District gatekeepers, so to speak. So there's a bit of some subjective analysis that based on the buildings that we, have in Alpine, up and down Main Street, in our other, commercial areas, subject of somewhat of a subjective application. Do we feel like the sign as proposed also meets the quote-unquote feel of Alpine? And there's a lot that goes into that, but I think we're fairly aware of that. So anyway, open for discussion. Anybody have feelings on this, thoughts?
I like it. I think it's a good-looking sign. I think I can live even with the physical therapy being black, cut out metal letters, light background. I think it'll be as nice as anything else we've approved.
Do we have other brushed aluminum signs? I'm just trying to think.
It's a hodgepodge, so I don't know if it
Yeah.
matters.
We
I know,
wanted
it's
it on
it-
that dental
It's
practice.
not red.
That sign that we pushed hard on?
Okay,
That was
that
brushed
was the
aluminum.
Wanted
worst,
brushed aluminum,
so.
Oh,
and
we-
we ended up going to painted.
Give it
That's
in.
right, we did, yeah. So this is an improvement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Michelle, there's a lot of
You're
things that
correct,
happened
actually, yeah.
in the past that we,
Exactly.
that,
Just
that,
move
that
forward.
we can only, you know,
Got flashing
atone
neon.
for, apologize for, or whatever. So, okay, any further discussion on, the signage on the west side of the building?
I have a question on it. Is that metal, is that going to be like a shiny metal? I mean, we have some of the antiqued and things like that, but I wish we had a sample of the brush to see kind of what it looks like. But anyway, I just want to make sure that we don't have a like super modern looking shiny aluminum sign. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but it's,
It's.
the building
it-
itself is
It's
a little
called
more
brushed
modern.
aluminum,
Yeah.
horizontal grain. So that by
Yeah.
definition is not shiny.
Can-
Okay.
Can, I mean,
Be more flat.
did Paul have
Yeah,
something to add?
Paul, do you have
or-
any?
So it should be a matte finish then.
Help us with what is a brushed aluminum.
If you got stainless steel, and it could kind of like, it could kind of turn different colors over time, and we didn't want it to look like dingy, and so they take a little brushed wheel and they go,
So is it more of a matte than a polished?
yeah, they just scratch it up, and it
Yeah.
makes it look
Yeah,
uh,
brushed.
brushed.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay, thanks, Paul. Jane, Jane, I assume you could hear Paul?
Yep, I could.
Okay. What are your thoughts, Shane, on, Gateway Historic District and a district and a
I
and a
was
brushed
just gonna
aluminum?
glance really quickly a second time through the guidelines of the sign materials. Maybe we could just look at that together and then I would be good with it.
Yeah, Ryan, can you pull that up? It's a good idea.
I mean, these are more for buildings. I'm not expecting everyone to be on the, I think this is, chapter 7 is probably the closest that we have
Yeah.
for, I don't know if we have a, well, it's a 10-page document. Yeah. So we don't necessarily have a chapter on signs, that might be something we wanna look at, but I think this was probably the closest that we have.
Okay.
Yeah, I just know that when Paul originally came through, I mean, one of the terms that we used was this is, kind of a, for lack of a better term, is the descriptor is a mountain modern, a bit of a look. So I think the sign is, to John's point, I think the sign is probably harmonious with the design of the building.
Yeah, I would agree.
And I know metal is an approved material, right?
Yep.
So,
I think it looks good.
Okay, so, does anybody, would anybody like to, any further discussion before I would invite
Do
somebody to
we
make a
want to
motion?
separate the signs or make them together?
Yeah, I think the motion probably does. Let's give some, Ryan, what was your recommendation with respect to the second sign? Because we don't have a rendering from Yesco on that. Paul addressed that with
Yep.
us.
Yep.
I suppose that the motion could require that
Did it get signed off by?
it
So we-
signed off by
we
Ryan.
We can specify the material in the motion.
Right, yeah, and our thought on this, and again, instead of having Paul come back for that one, is we could look at it, kind of everything else, and then in the motion say, can't be, approved, can't be signed until a rendering is
Yeah.
submitted showing it's less than 60 square feet and the lighting is
Yep.
what it needs to be, so.
Yep.
Okay. I'd invite somebody to make a motion.
I'll make a motion. I I move that the sign application for Alpine Fitness and the Alpine Physical Therapy signs be approved, subject to the physical therapy sign being constructed out of black metal letters and not backlit. And the west-facing Alpine Fitness sign be lighted with a halo lighting effect.
And do you want to include something that the Alpine, that the physical therapy sign be approved and signed off by staff?
Oh, I'd like to do that. With staff being able, recommend that, or not recommend, included in this motion is a feature that staff approve the final renderings for the physical therapy sign.
We have a motion by John McKay. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a second by Suze Wittenberg. Discussion on the motion.
I have one more question. How wide are the letters in the sign? Like the solid, how wide is the solid metal part of the letters in the sign?
Alpine Fitness sign.
You know, like if you take the eye, how wide is that eye?
Which one are we talking about, Alpine Fitness or physical therapy?
Alpine Fitness.
Well, they're 1 feet 7 inches tall.
And it's like 16 feet wide divided by,
Just, does it say anywhere, or maybe he knows, like, well, obviously they're all the same. I'm just wondering, is it like a 3-inch wide letter? Or is that a,
No, there probably, well, there's 1, 2,
It's
3, 4,
probably-
5,
Oh, yeah.
six letters and a tree, though, so probably a little, yeah, about 2 feet.
but the eyes are probably 6 inches.
okay. So each thickness part you think is about 6 inches. I'm just trying to imagine how much flat metal we're looking at there. Do you know what I'm
Yeah. Mm.
saying?
I mean, it's 16 feet across.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks. 16.
Yeah, so each letter is like 2 by 2.
Okay.
But the eyes are probably a little smaller.
Yeah, that's true. Anyway, I'm just imagining like how much flat metal we're looking at, so,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay.
Okay, any further discussion?
Can
All right.
can I clarify a couple things that Paul just brought up? So with the Alpine Fitness sign, they won't have a tree on there. So that'll be removed, but it'll still have to be within the 60 square feet.
So it's just gonna be empty space.
So this isn't the final rendering?
Why did I just get this?
No,
Minus
So and this was just something we discussed yesterday, but this was the rendering that we have. So the tree will be gone. And then also on the,
Will the Alpine be centered kind of over fitness, so there'll be a little indent? Or will there just be an empty space where the tree currently shows?
Just left justified.
yeah.
I mean, I think left justified would look fine. It doesn't really matter, but.
So we punched everything through the wall.
Just tell us if it's gonna be centered or left justified.
I have to tell you this. It's punched through the wall. And so to shrink it down, we talked to Ryan, if we shrink everything down, we have to rip it all out of the wall. It doesn't match up now. So Ryan said, I said, what else can we do so we don't have to rip the second sign out and then we don't have any good signs? So he said, well, we'll take the tree out, but leave the letters bigger.
I didn't recommend taking the tree out. That's what you
No,
guys
I
proposed.
recommend taking the tree out so
Yeah.
we can meet the square
Okay.
footage.
Yep.
So
Yep.
now we meet the square footage, so we would take the tree out, leave everything it is. If we try to center, justify it and all this kind of stuff, now we have to rip the entire
So
thing
you're
apart.
left justified then.
Okay,
The
so,
A
yeah, and
is
left
right over the
justified
F.
looks great, I think. I just want to know if it's left justified.
Left justified, because we have no other
So
choice.
there will
perfect.
just be a space there instead of the stylized
no tree.
evergreen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that'll look great.
Yeah.
That's just what I wanted to know.
Okay.
And this was just the renderings that we have that have been submitted, so that's why it's still showing that. And then with the physical therapy sign at the bottom, and we did this, if you remember, what's it called? The Crandall Printing Press Museum. They submitted a sign. We didn't like
Yes.
how it was backlit, so we allowed them to have those, I don't know what to call them, the hook lights that kind of shine back towards the building. So we discussed on this, that doing something similar potentially on the Alpine, on the physical therapy part with the lighting, but we've allowed it. We just don't want it out facing from the building. If it's facing towards the building, it's fine. That's what we've done in the past anyway with these. So those would be in there as well, potentially, but those are in, again, nothing out of compliance with those, but, so.
Yeah, before we vote, Paul, did you need to say something? You want to come to sorry, up and down, come up, please.
Been doing a lot of this on the fly and trying to punch things in and out of the building, so it's all finished. And so, see those two lights that stick up that would normally highlight the wooden pillars? We don't have any light on this at night, and we do a lot of people after work. So the sign's gonna meet the code, because it'll be way smaller than 60 square feet, it'll be like 20. But the two lights, instead of punching them up like this, in the motion, it said something that you can't light or backlight. The code says that you can backlight as long as it goes towards the wall, or the Crandall building lights back against the wall. So it both meets, right?
Yeah.
Code.
Yeah.
And so my question is we either have to lose those two lights of lighting up the tower and take those lights and point them down at the Alpine Physical Therapy so you can see the sign, which is code, or we have to come off with a conduit, or we have to rip out the wall. Conduit's probably preferable, or just taking those two lights and not lighting up the tower and lighting them down at the building. I don't see anything wrong with lighting up the sign, because that's legal.
I think that's just your choice.
Yeah, I
right?
just wanted to make sure, because in the thing, it says you can't backlight, and that's,
What he's talking about
I
is
think
my
so,
motion.
Yeah.
What I was trying to identify is that these have no lighting features integral to the sign.
except for the fact we just take a light that are sitting there.
But because we
like
have
that.
made lighting an issue with the Crandall building, we probably ought to modify it so that we are saying, understand, it's not just orienting them down, it's bringing them back around and shining them back to the
Shining
sign.
in towards
Right
the
now, they're
building.
shining like this, up the tower,
Understand,
and we're just gonna go
but sign,
like that.
I don't know if that does it.
We probably have to do it to where it comes back towards the sign.
Okay, so then
That
that
makes
comes up with
sense.
another thing, so I just need to know.
Yeah. it needs to
So
be a-
do I have to
a
come up with
type-
some kind of
You can probably
conduit?
leave the same J-box
Come off the J
with a
boxes
big
and come up with some kind of
gooseneck
gooseneck that comes back and
fixture that comes back.
that like puts 3 lights out like this or something like that. You guys would be okay with that?
And the Crandall Printing Press Museum one is a good example of that that was approved, but I don't know if anyone remembers that. Originally, they kind of had a backlit going through the sign, kind of circus looking. It's a great sign now, but, but one of the things was it had to be back towards the building.
Yeah.
We don't want it,
So if I think back to your
Outfacing.
motion, where, your motion included a requirement that the physical therapy portion be approved and signed off by city staff.
Yeah.
Right.
Won't that cover
Yes, it will,
the lighting
as long as
issue?
the applicant is aware of what the requirement is.
yeah.
Okay, all right, any further discussion on the motion and the second? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Okay, I think we were unanimous on that. Thanks, Jane, sorry, I almost cut you off again. Thank you, Paul. Okay, action item C, it's a public hearing, and it's code amendment, section 3.31 of the Alpine Development Code, regulating boundary line adjustments. Ryan, you can introduce that?
Yep, so if this feels like Groundhog Day, it's because it is. So we looked at this, not too long ago, a couple months ago. there was, and not to go into too much detail, but the case is over now. There was pending litigation, regarding boundary line adjustments in the wording that went in there. So on the recommendation of our city attorney, we, went and cleaned up the code amendment, or the section of the code dealing with boundary line adjustments. That's this 3.31. So we had a public hearing on that during the November 7th meeting that we had here. That went through. You guys recommended that to the city council. The attorney went back and looked at it and was, consulted state code again just to make sure we were okay. And, it was kind of, well, let's just basically adopt really similar language to what state code says on boundary line adjustments. One of those things that we have to follow those. So we felt the changes were significant enough that it needed to come back for a public hearing at the planning commission. Really what we're trying to do, that point number 3 is really what we're trying to do on here is just, bring our language that mirrors state code as far as boundary line adjustments. We are trying to, you know, make it easier to use, make it more user-friendly, but at the end of the day, we're trying to be more compliant with state code. When we did our subdivision ordinance update last meeting that we had, there were sections of that deal with boundary line adjustments. I went through those and made sure we were good to go there. Basically, those just outline more of the process, but didn't go into specifics. So what we have before us meets state code. Our attorney's the one that drafted this and came up with it. And so it's before you guys again. Again, legislative decision. If it meets our vision for Alpine, that's kind of the standards there. So happy to go over any questions or comments on this. That's all I have for staff report.
All right, thank you, Ryan. This does require a public hearing, so let's go ahead and open the matter up for public hearing. Since we have an empty house, I assume, unless somebody sees somebody I don't, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Okay, any discussion on the item, the code amendment?
No, I think it's pretty straightforward.
I would invite someone to make a motion.
I'll just make one comment. I noticed in what you sent us, Ryan, there were like a couple like PDF comments
Yeah.
in there, like on page 51, I guess, and 52 and 53.
Usually they show up so I can see them easier. Most,
Right
yeah,
there.
that's a great example. Most of these were just feedback from the city attorney. Most of those were kind of notes that and
Okay.
in case anyone from the state is listening, I will be selective on this, but the state code doesn't make a whole lot of sense on this. Like there's some
Okay.
stuff that kind of counteracts each other. So I left those on there just so we could see, if there was anything that
Okay.
you know,
But I guess that all goes away when this gets
yep, when it gets
And this
adopted,
gets
these will all go away. Yep.
adopted. And
Yep.
then just the green, if you go up the other pages, you can see where you've added those state codes.
The references and stuff, yep,
Yeah.
yep,
Okay.
yep.
Ryan, was that draft actually January 3rd of 2023?
It should be 24.
Okay, I was
Yep.
gonna say, was this?
We just
current?
got this not too
No.
long ago. Yep, yep. And
Just
when-
current then.
When there are boundary line adjustments, can someone go to the city and adjust their boundary line without the adjoining property knowing?
No.
Nope.
You do notify them
Yeah.
that there is an issue and it's, okay.
The form that we have requires both property owners. If it's just one property, guy owns both, that's fine, or if it's,
Right, if it's
yep.
internal,
yep, we require both. And if it's in a subdivision, we have to amend the plat, they would have to come in and sign it. We
Right.
couldn't record it without the other property owner, so.
okay. I was just
Yep.
alerted by a neighbor that there's a sliver of county land behind my home and that I may not own where, and he came to me and said, you don't own where you think you own. I'm like, I don't know.
And
The little pink flag is gone.
we just looked at this too with other ones, and I won't go into too much on this, but
But-
there are
Little slivers.
little slivers that just, the boundary description just don't add up. And that's a county issue, they need to clean that up.
Okay.
As we've seen those come up, we've worked with property owners to clean it up, so,
Okay, you would work with the whole group?
Yep.
That's in the
Yep.
code and all of that?
Yep, one of the things too that I wanted to point out, one of the comments from, I won't go find it because I'll make everyone car sick, but one of the comments that Steve had is the recommending and approval bodies. If you remember in our subdivision ordinance, we've got a table that says these are the bodies. If there's kind of two sections on that. One of them, if it's a basic, doesn't change anything, no roads are involved, no right of way, anything like that. City staff is the one, we've always done those, that we just, does it meet our zoning? Jed and I look at that. Does it meet our zoning requirements? Does it, meet all those fun things? We've been able to do those. If there's more, then it would come to planning commission and city council as part of that, review process. But yes, we've got our land use authority and our bodies, in there already, so. And that just calls back to those, so.
Cool. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Ryan.
I'll make a motion, Alan. Okay. I move to recommend approval of ordinance 2024-06, proposed code amendment to section 3.31 boundary line adjustments as proposed.
All right, thank you, Jeff. We have a motion from Commission Member Jeff Davis. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a second from Troy Slade. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, no further discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Oh, sorry, Jane. Let the record reflect Jane is an aye. Any opposed? Okay, let's move on to the final item then. Code amendment to section 3.08 of the Development Code to create a public facilities zone.
Yep. So I'll go ahead and
Wait,
take this
Ryan?
one. Yeah, this is a fun one. So, right now, if you were to look, this came, if you follow anything with the school districts or anything like that, there's a lot of, not a lot, but there's talk of certain schools being closed, and wanting to replace those with high-density housing as the zoning would allow. We started working on this probably back in October, November to kind of, prevent some of those things, kind of be proactive on this. What we would do with this is create this public facility zone. We want to get the language right before we go to rezone any properties, but once we get this right, what we'll do is we'll rezone any school, church, city property into this public facility zone. That way, so if a church were to close or a school or anything like that, we wouldn't be surprised to get a plan for, housing units on there. So that's not to say that's out of the question, but if we rezone it to this, if in 10, 20 years, the school or the church or, whatever, any other public entity, said we're gonna close this, use church as an example, we're gonna close the church, we're gonna bulldoze it and we wanna build houses here, they would have to come in for a rezone, just so the city's a little more aware of what's going on here. And the language in this, well, I wanted to show a zoning map first, or a use map. So what this would do is really any kind of purple, really it's shades of purple and green. Anything that's city-owned, anything that's church-owned or school-owned would be rezoned to this, whatever color zone that we pick. And again, it's just to be proactive in this, so if a school were to close tomorrow, they wouldn't say, okay, we looked at, Alpine Elementary was one that we just used as an example. If that were to close today, I can't, it's this one right here, I believe.
Yep, it's the purple one right there.
But this
Yeah.
isn't a zoning map, this is just a use map. Right now, it's zone TR 10,000. So if the school in theory came in tomorrow and said, we wanna tear the school down and we're gonna put houses on there, I believe when we looked at it, it was about 30 homes they could put on that property. So, not to say we would be against that if someone did wanna close a school or a church or anything like that, but this way, we're just a little more in the loop and aware of changes that could come.
So if we change zoning, what would that allow
Yep.
on that property?
Yep, let's go back up to the draft. Here. So these are, just like any other zone, we'd have permitted and conditional uses. You'll notice in here that we don't have any, really, businesses and residential are not permitted uses that they would have in there. So you could have open space, a lot of this, like I said, is city property, so if we bought property and or if we had existing property and needed to put, you know, a city building or something like that on it, that would be allowed. Water detention, debris basins, water wells, water storage, different things like that. So those would kind of be, we want to kind of keep it those open space, city parks type things like that. Conditional uses would be more of the probably quasi-public uses there, church, hospitals, schools, museums. I don't know if we'll have a lot of museums, but it's good to know we can.
What about a wildlife refuge? That'd be cool.
Yeah, yep, we could add the, oh, that is, yep, right there, yep.
Would the agriculture be like the apple orchard, or was this just city?
No, so you could, any agriculture would be allowed. So if this, and again, if like the church-owned property, the Mangater property there, I gotta be careful, cause I don't, anyway. If they said they wanted to, you know, grow hay or have cows graze on it or something, that's kind of what we're,
Right, but
What we're
they can
thinking there.
opt in, cause right now that farm, the apple orchard at the bend, he's in like that TR.
He's in the
TR
CR
40,000.
he's in the
Would
CR 40,000, yep.
he be rezoned into this, or only if he wanted to?
No, cause it's not a public,
Cause it's not
not a
public.
public
Yeah,
property.
it's not a public property.
Yep, and agriculture's an allowed use in that zone too, so.
But so how does that work, Ryan? Because you have, for example, I mean, that like you just kind of mentioned you lump together, sorry, you should be close to the microphone, city buildings, schools, the examples you used, and, for example, churches.
Yeah,
Well, those are three different types of owners. I mean, you have the LDS church, you know, and it could be others. I'm not sure if there's any other churches
there's
in our boundaries, but,
there could be one day.
But
yeah.
that's
Yeah.
a right? But that's
Yep.
that's a private owner
Yep.
of, you know, multiple church buildings within our city boundaries. Then you have, you know, schools, and those are, you know, I assume those are, I mean, that's some sort of quasi-state entity, right? A school district.
Yeah.
It's certainly not the city of Alpine or even,
Right.
you know, Utah County, but it's Alpine School District owns those buildings and properties, and then you have certain city buildings. So when you're kind of, you know, at this point imposing on these owners a public facilities zone, which, you know, may change what
Yeah,
their
that name
ultimate
is-
uses are,
Yep.
what is that process? Is there is there a notice? Is there a hearing? Is there an opportunity to object?
Yep.
What is the process with those current owners?
Yep, and the reason we pick those is because they're public in nature or quasi-public, right? So, a school, like, anyone could go, not anyone, I guess there are restrictions, but anyone could go on a school and play on a playground or do anything right there. So but, I mean, you couldn't walk into the building anytime you want, night or day. So, public, but quasi-public in that, school property, churches are similar, you know, anyone could go ride their scooter, ride their bike around the church parking lot. Not a big deal. If you wanted to go in, that's when we meet that quasi-public there. So, that's why we picked those ones. As far as the process goes, yes, we would notify the property owners, well in advance. We would like to work with them as much as we can to make it to where it would work. We're doing the language first, so we can say, this is what we want to do with this, or want to have there. And it's not, well, okay, you wanna rezone it, what do you wanna do? Well, I don't know, we're still working on that. We wanna have something in place. But yeah, they would be notified, there would be a hearing process, just like we would with any other zone change. What's nice about these is we wouldn't, and even if we did, but we wouldn't rezone anything that was like currently housing. We wouldn't rezone that because that's its current use. The only rezones we'd have is if it's a current school or park, you know, open space or church property that way. So they could still continue the use forever and ever. Just like anything else, if I wanted to put a business where a house is, I'd have to come in for a rezone to do that. So that was kind of our thinking on that. But yeah, public use, public, quasi-public is kind of what we were going for there.
Okay, so the benefits to keep it public use, that's really kind of the benefit.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And we wouldn't, like I said, we wouldn't, if, I can't think of a property that's large that's privately owned, but if it was open space, privately owned, we wouldn't touch that.
I think it's just mostly kind of a stopgap, right? It's a, I think we all recognize that Alpine Elementary is not gonna be around for much more. And so when they decide to close the school, which is gonna be soon, then it's like, this is just gonna kind of put a guard up against the city, with the city, to like, okay, what's gonna happen to that land? Because it's designated as this, and those things can still happen, continue, but if a zone change is gonna have to happen, then the process goes through the zone change that affects that public facilities zone. That's
They-
kinda how I,
But the
that's kinda how I
default
picture
zoning
it.
for those schools,
Is the
it
same.
falls in the smaller CR 10,000 or whatever.
Yes,
Like the
um,
neighborhood is.
At
And
least for the
so-
Alpine
Yeah,
Elementary.
and that's a good
Yeah.
example.
yes.
So it gives us a process to say, do we want that to fall into the 10,000, maybe,
Exactly,
or maybe not?
yeah. It's just kind of one extra step.
And if they did come in for a rezone, they probably have a pretty good chance, cause it's surrounded by,
Yeah.
we would just want to,
Okay,
It's a
that was gonna
complete
be my
change in
question, right?
use.
So let's just
Yeah.
say, for example, right? I mean, affordable housing in Alpine has, become an issue,
Yeah.
in many places.
Yeah.
We happen to have the old red brick LDS church, that's in, the CR 10,000.
Yeah,
We also have Alpine Elementary, probably also within the CR
TR
10,000, right?
10,000, yep.
So
Yep.
it may very well end up being, I mean, who knows?
yeah.
But if either, I guess you close a church because maybe
Yeah.
membership dwindles, or they build a bigger one somewhere else, and
Right.
whatever reason, right?
Right,
It just, they close that, or the elementary school. There is a process then for that to, for example, be.
Yep.
Something else.
Be homes.
Yeah.
Smaller homes,
Yep.
on, on quarter acre lots.
Yeah.
Yep.
There is that ability.
Yep.
That's not foreclosed by
Nope.
this public
They
facility
would,
zone.
they would just have to come in and get a rezone, and like I said, let's use Alpine Elementary as an example, cause that's one that we're talking about. It's surrounded by TR 10,000 quarter acre lots anyway, so they could come in and say, hey, we're closing the school. I hope we're not starting rumors, I haven't heard anything on this, we're just trying to be proactive, but Orem and Saratoga, I know, have done this on property, they've created these zones, as well, but, if the school were to close Alpine Elementary, bulldoze it, come in and say, hey, we'd like to rezone this to TR 10,000, we wanna put some homes here, it's surrounded by TR 10,000 homes anyway, it wouldn't be out of the question, it wouldn't be a stretch to say that would make sense to rezone that as a, by doing this though, we're kind of putting the city in the driver's seat to
Yeah.
say,
Yeah.
just to have a say, just because it's such a dramatic change in uses.
I think another property that we haven't mentioned is right on the roundabout, that, what used to be a ball field.
Yeah,
Yeah,
And,
yep.
yeah.
nobody plays softball anymore,
Mhm.
and that's a piece of property that's just sitting there likewise in the CR 10,000 Gateway Historic District.
Yeah.
So I suppose it would likewise, that's a property that would
Yep.
fall under this
Yep.
public facilities zone.
Yep.
So it's kinda like the city just has eyes on it, like we're just kinda keeping our eyes on things so that somebody
I
just
kinda
doesn't
like it.
come in and
Yeah,
something that's just like
Yep.
so crazy, but legally, could they?
if they were to come in, yeah, let's use that one as example, I believe that one's in our, let me look here. Just cause I have this zoning map in here already. It's either in the business commercial or the half acre. Yeah, oh no, that's in the 1 acre. Yep, so if tomorrow, if the church said, hey, we don't, and I don't know the size of that, of the ball field there, but let's say it's 5 acres, if the church said, hey, we can make it work to where we get the frontage and everything, and we meet our code, they could come in tomorrow and say, we're gonna put housing.
Because they own it, so
Mhm.
anybody that's okay. Then they could put a reception center there, right?
Yeah, there you go,
Yeah, there you go.
there you
So
go.
same with the school though, so the school seems more like it's, not, it's owned with the school district, and so the government's gotta be involved. So does a realtor go in and buy up that parcel and decide to subdivide it and put homes in there?
They could, Yep.
And they would need to still come to the city, right?
Yep.
So that gives you
Yep.
this gives you that
Yeah,
kind
it's just kind of a,
of oversee.
yeah,
So it's not
an
And-
just,
extra step.
Yeah, that's a good point too. If the, let's say the church owned a property, and this is just because it's more likely, not to say a school couldn't do that. If a church owned a property, they sold it to someone else while it's zoned business, or not business commercial, this public we can change the name to, while it's zoned, this public facility zone, they would still probably have to come in and get a zone change. I don't know why they wouldn't, because that's what it's zoned. But we're just starting off with these public, and there's no intention, like I said, that's all it will be, is public or quasi-public entities. There's no way we would do this for, anything that's privately owned. Yep. Yep.
Cool. And this is just a
So-
recommendation, right?
Yep, this is, yeah, great point, Jeff. This is legislative, so this will be a recommendation. We took this to the city council before, just to get feedback and before it came to you guys, so everything that they talked about is included in this, and we've made changes. They wanted to clarify, define public and quasi-public, that's in our definitions already, so we point back to that. Parking standards, we point to 3.24, which is our off-street parking for like schools and different things like that, hospitals,
Yeah.
churches. So we point to those, so it's a little easier to understand and find, so it's not issues like that.
Sorry, so aren't churches kind of different though? Aren't they kind of private? Wouldn't-
Yeah, and that's
you
what's,
know?
that's why, kind of the
So can we do that? I mean,
quasi-public.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean-
and that's what a lot of these other cities are doing there, including, mainly the big focus like is on school districts, school-owned
Yeah.
property. But where churches are quasi-public, they would fall under that,
Okay,
all
all right.
that standard there.
There's no legal issues with doing that with
I haven't heard any,
quasi-public?
when we brought it up in city council, our city attorney didn't bring any,
Oh, okay,
any
okay.
issues. But, and again, that's a great point too. This will all go by him before
Yeah,
we,
yeah.
before it goes
At the-
anywhere,
you
so.
know,
That's a good point, though. Same thing with like hospitals, they're public but private, and kind of fit in that quasi-public.
Okay.
Two hospitals?
So then, the language that we've gone through then,
Use the hospital?
it's,
Or just a-
at this point, really before then, further discussion, entertaining a motion, I mean, this is it, it's just a one pager there, is there something, after
There's
that?
a,
Hearing?
Yeah,
Oh,
public
oh,
hearing.
that's right, it's a public hearing, okay.
and,
Yeah.
and a lot of this language too is from our commercial, like as far as trash storage, different things like that, height of buildings, if they ever were, a lot of that's already built in our, we took from our business commercial. So,
Okay.
Sorry.
No, John raised a good point. I forgot to do a public hearing, so let's go ahead and thank you, Ryan. I appreciate you introducing that. Let's go ahead and open this for a public hearing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, let's close the public hearing then. Okay, any discussion on the draft, and any tune-up items that anybody has with the proposed language contained within this draft? Because if not, I think it would be time for motion.
so no conditions, nothing. You don't think, just like it is?
Yeah. No, I think, I'll make a motion.
There's a motion man tonight, a motion maker.
No,
Good.
I've only made two so far. I move to recommend approval of ordinance 2024-05, proposed code amendment to section 3.08 of the Alpine Development Code, creating a public facilities zone as proposed.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. We have a motion by Jeff Davis. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a second by Michelle Shermer. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 See, I gave Jane time that time. Any opposed? Okay, the vote is unanimous.
I gotta apologize on the staff report too. I took this is the language that I had on the staff recommendation for the city council, so I'm not sure how that stayed in there. But we got it on the cheat sheet, so,
Yeah.
Thanks for-
I noticed the difference,
By
and
by
that's
the
why
way,
I
the
said I
cheat sheet is great.
yes.
Recommend
thanks for-
approval.
We love this.
Thanks for,
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, do we have, moving on then, do we have any communications?
Had a couple, just wanted to run by everybody. The subdivision ordinance was passed by the city council. I wanted to show this to, before, they had a lively discussion on, the public hearing section. I don't know if anybody heard that, but, it was passed. I think it was a 3-2 vote. The only, reason that it was 3-2 was because of the public hearing, side of it. So they just didn't want the public to feel left out, or they weren't part of the process, and how we're gonna keep the city council involved in this too. So, Heidi Smith is our new communications coordinator. She runs our website. She's doing fantastic. Not that that has anything to do with this, but just on the record, she's doing fantastic. This is something that we're looking at doing. If you can, this is just a screenshot of it that we took today. What this will look like, is subdivisions come in, so under the project name, whatever the subdivision's name is, we'll have that there. The type, so we really developed this, so if in the future we wanted to say, hey, there's road work going on, we can add stuff in this too. So the type would be, a subdivision, have the address on there, the status, so what, if it's in the preliminary, if you guys have reviewed it, if it's in final, if it's in, going forward there, and then next step. So if it wasn't preliminary, the next steps would be obviously, would go to final, and we'd have language on that too. The way I envision these is we still do staff reports, and it would just be one PDF. So if it's gone through, if they did a concept, which is now optional, which we've discussed, that staff report, all the site plans, everything would be included in that. And then it would just be one PDF that you would go to preliminary next, and then final, to where we would do that. We'd try to make it easy and accessible. Once we get this put into place, and when we get more subdivision, projects, we'll update this. We'll push it really hard social media wise and in the news line, so just so people know where to go on these moving forward. But, and credit to you guys, this is your idea to have this on here, so, we've got this. One day, if you get bored and wanna go on Lehigh's website, they have an interactive map that shows, all these, but we're not there yet. We're getting there, but.
But it's nice and it's
It
really
is,
helpful.
yep. So just wanted to update you guys on that. That's what we'll kind of do as far as keeping the public involved. Jed and I are gonna arm wrestle about who puts their email on here to see if people wanna comment, who those go to, so it'll probably be me.
The loser gets their email put on?
Yes. No, Jed's from Monticello, so he'll win, so,
Yeah, I was gonna say, Jed's skinny, but he's wired
yeah,
and
that's,
strong.
yep. Jed survived a lot. He can tell you those stories, so. But yeah, this is what we'll do, just to keep that up to date. We just wanted to let you guys know on that. And then, again, just a reminder, if you did the training that we sent out, send me an email saying you've done that. Several of you already done that. But we just need a record saying that you've watched it. We'll mark you down and pay you that week. I don't know what we'll.
And I've done it, or is this another one?
I think this is a new one. I think actually you did send me one saying you've done
Yeah.
it since January, so.
Mine?
I think, yep, and then, yes, I won't embarrass everybody by saying who I don't have, but, yes, if you've got it, just shoot me an email and say, hey, I did
Guilty.
it. Yes. So, yep, that's the only communications I had, unless you guys have anything for me.
Okay, thanks for calling me out, Ryan, appreciate it.
I would say that it's not too early to start talking about the fruit stand.
Yes, thank you for reminding me. So
I
we,
mean, we're in February.
yeah, so
That's
we
not
got,
too close.
we
Or
got a
not too
new
far
city
away.
council.
Might be too soon.
We discussed this as part of the communications in city council. You have to have two of them, or the mayor, or the city administrator. And we got all the requirements have been met on that. So we are planning a work session soon to see what the city can do as far as next, with their new, what we're gonna look at there. So,
Okay,
yeah, that is on the agenda for this month, hopefully.
okay.
It's gonna be a work session, so you guys feel free to come. We'll let you know.
Yeah, I'd
Yeah.
like to.
What's the
Yeah,
issue?
yeah, if you would just communicate
Yep.
that with us,
Yep.
that
Yep,
would be helpful.
so we'll put that on there too. But yeah,
What's the issue, Jeff, with you up that road? You up the road? Is that-
It's been a topic of discussion for 2 years, and we're at a point, I mean, frankly, my opinion is, we're at a point where like, okay, what is this next year gonna look like? And it's not too soon to start talking about it, and
Yep.
what our expectations are.
yep,
I guess that's what it is what are our
Basically,
expectations?
will commitments be met?
yeah. And the thought process, the plan was always kind of in this off-season while they're,
Yeah.
but yeah, so, yep, thanks for reminding me. We did talk about the last city council meeting. That's a work session item, so. Yep.
Yeah, I'm concerned about the way it looks, like very inviting from the highway. And I can't even see where the parking lot is that's supposed to be there, and there's a wall back there, so
Yeah.
I'm anxious to see what the actual plan is, but it looks so great to just park along the side of the road and run right up to the front.
Exactly.
I think you move the traffic in front of.
We need a fence and some
Yeah.
stuff or something going on there.
Exactly.
Start communicating with UDOT for signs or whatever, so we can,
Yeah, and that was part of their conditional use is to have
Yeah.
signs.
no
Say
parking, permanent.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's why I brought it up.
Yep, no, thanks, yeah, we did, yep, that was something I meant to bring up, so that's a good reminder.
And I guess the other thing I was gonna bring up was our Montebello is going according to plan, the fence.
Ella?
Mandela,
Well, they've got a couple of we've got a couple of
Yeah.
the twin homes up now at this point.
so,
I have no idea if they're selling them.
That's what I was wondering,
I mean, the buildings look nice. How
Yeah.
much?
1.4
Wow.
Each half?
for the larger, yeah, just one.
Yeah,
Are they twin homes, all of them?
twin homes, yeah.
yeah,
I remember when the original developer, Alan Cottle, came in the very first time on those, and look, everything's gone up, but they were, 500 to 600,000.
yeah,
But, yeah, so, interesting, so, but,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, they're going up, they look nice.
Yeah, and they have the fence up there, that was
Yeah.
like what they had proposed, and so I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Part of
But-
that conversation, because it's changed hands, but back initially, remember that guy in the back? That sent his guy to come up and do the talking, he left real mad? Cause he was just like, we're like, well, have you really studied, like, do you have interest, or people, you got buyers? And he's like, we know this, we know who we're talking to, these people in Alpine, I'm just going, that's not the answer. And so he got really offended and left.
Are you talking about the Henry Walker
The old
folks?
guy that owned it first, like, was it
First-
sitting
the
back
first
there?
Developer?
Remember, he sent his developer up here? And they got in that little.
Oh, they were,
There was like 7 or 8.
Yeah,
there was a bit of a parade.
Quite a few.
I just remember when Henry Walker
acted
Homes
like-
said they would do us a favor and throw out some cardboard boxes, some stucco boxes,
Yeah.
and it didn't go well.
Yeah,
Who
So-
called them barracks?
Yeah,
One
so
of
these
you
guys are,
said
they're moving the
Army
project
barracks.
forward. I don't know if they're cash flowing, I don't know if they're selling.
That might have been me,
Let's vote yes.
okay, yeah, that was
Okay,
the,
I think-
that was the only 2 things I wanted to bring up.
It still looks kinda stuck over
Well,
there.
that and the Alpine Fitness are kind of pushing the two ends of the historic district
Oh, for sure,
design zones.
yeah,
And so I don't know if we wanna rein it back to the middle
yeah,
one,
And we
which is
just,
the brick, come
Yeah.
back, but those two are kind of pushed our limits
Yeah.
on design.
yeah.
Has anybody,
Standards.
how's the Ezra or the Ezra,
Yes, it's half Branson building.
The
I
Ezra
rolled
Lee.
off the tongue,
that's out of Alpine, we don't have to know.
Ezra building coming.
It's just behind the junction,
Yeah, but have you
and,
seen-
it looks pretty
It looks
nice.
like it's, yeah.
They had a fire there over the summer, fall, but I don't think it was it was big enough, but not
So
a,
is it just office space?
it's
If I
gonna,
recall, it's kind of office space, but also kind of a
Like a
design
center
furniture showroom.
Yeah, it's like a showroom.
They're gonna stage
Yeah.
all of their
Stuff.
Oh,
designs before they go
and then
into the site.
storage in the bunkers from the car wash.
Well, I
Is that
think
storage,
they're
somebody
having
said?
offices in
Yeah,
I
maybe
think
their
what used to be the
design
car
space.
wash.
The car wash
bays, if I
somebody said
recall.
it was gonna be storage, but it's not.
Maybe, I don't remember, it's been a
Okay,
while.
but office with an open event space for showroom.
Staging,
Staging.
yeah,
and
because they were looking to do some furniture design and furniture sales, and so people could see what,
With their parade.
I
that high-end
I just
look.
wanna see if they stick to the gateway look, I don't know.
Yep.
That-
yeah, I'll have to go look, I haven't been back there for, you don't do Thirsty Thursdays anymore, so I haven't been back there in a minute, but I'll have to go.
Mountain Modern is
I
kind
know,
of where
I'm
we
not loving that
evolved.
term right now,
Mountain
mountain
modern.
modern.
Yeah,
But-
but Mountain Modern's more brown.
And then we
Yeah.
moved H tree down.
Yeah, more brown than
Well-
black.
And to Michelle's point too, we're going for a grant right now. We've already submitted it for they call it a small area study plan. So it'll be our main street, and part of that will be a review of our design standards, so we clean them up a little bit, and then a kind of leakage study type things in there. So we'll get back on that, but we are looking at kind of updating our historic design standards, so they're not so
Cool.
match what's there, but we don't like what's there.
Well,
So-
I think Cedar Hills has made their design standard brick, right? Every single building, I'm not saying they're lovely, but every building is brick, right?
Yeah.
That's all they allow
There is some
in
continuity,
their
yeah.
business district, from Walmart to,
Well,
Can't really name
I
it.
think when some past council approved Alpine, Town Square with every possible exterior material on every different building, just sort of made like, what?
Yeah,
We got,
It's hard to,
we got 5 or 6 buildings and every single one of them is a different, yeah. And you can now match to anything.
There's no siding.
Oh, yeah.
oh, no shake or vinyl?
Yeah, no vinyl
No
siding.
vinyl siding?
Okay, do we have any other communications? All right, thank you. Then, let's see, if anybody had a chance to read and review the minutes from January 16th and would like to make a motion to approve those.
I will make a motion to approve the minutes from January 16th, I said? Yes, right there, January 16th, 2024.
Okay, we have a motion from Suze Wittenberg. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
A second from Troy Slade. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Check the time of the conclusion of that meeting. Did you guys notice that?
Jane? Jane, did we get a vote?
Aye.
Aye, okay. Any opposed? No, okay. So, the motion to approve the minutes passes, and otherwise, we are adjourned.
I will make a motion to adjourn.
Oh, yes, gosh, sorry, make a motion.
Made.
I second.
And I second it.
Made, seconded, John McKay, Suze Wittenberg,
All in favor, aye.
all voted on.
Bye, Jen.
Okay.
Aye. Goodbye.
Good
Aye,
night.
bye.
Feel better.
Jane.
Thanks.
Okay.
Oh, look, we had a high of 3 people joining us.
John.
Shut off before